Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Mind Your Nest. I'm your host, Jennifer Rosen. I really love and adore my guest today, and I'm super excited that she's here. So I want to tell you how I first met Carolina Rush. As everybody knows, I left the business world about 1.5 years ago and been used to getting up and going to work, working 40 to 50 hours a week in corporate America for over 30 years. And when I decided to leave the business world, the first thing that I decided to do was I volunteered at the Delray Beach Chamber of Commerce, which I eventually joined. And I remember meeting Carolina for the first time and chatting with her about membership. And I remember thinking, she's kind of cool looking. She's got an edge to her. My bubbliness doesn't seem to be working on her. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So I kept trying, kept pushing, trying to talk to her about something cool and make myself seem like edgier so that it would meet her edginess. But that never really worked because I'm from the Midwest. I wound up starting to go to these events through the chamber, and I went to a cocktails and contacts event in February. And it was great. I'm not too shy, and I was bouncing around trying to meet different people. And towards the end of the night, I wound up standing next to Pam Orzan and Mark Jakowiec. I always fail on his last name, but I think everybody does. And after that event, Pam, Mark, and myself went to Lemongrass. And we were chatting. I mean, we could have still been there chatting, okay? Because we were all in unison, laughing, and there was a true vibe going on. From there, I wound up going to this networking group and met Janine, my podcast producer. I never knew that I wanted to have a podcast, but talking to Janine, she reminded me of Carolina's vibe. She's really cool. She's got cool hair. She's like funky. And I was like, wow, look at this. Lo and behold, as time went on, we started going out, this group. Funny, hilarious, little edgy times. There were a lot of edginess that started coming out when we all got together, and it was really fun. And now she's a friend, and I just love her. So hi, Carolina.
No, I love it. I'm so happy to be here, but I do want to rewind a little bit because this is hilarious. How you described our interaction and stuff. When I first met you, can we be frank?
Oh, of course.
I thought you were fucking nuts. Thought you were a little cuckoo. And I was like, gosh, dang, this lady can talk. And I remember you were talking to me about dating and you were going on a date with somebody, a lunch date or something.
Yes, time I met you.
And I was like, I'm always a little weird when people offer too much info on the first meet. And so I think that's why I was like, she is cuckoo. Oh my gosh. But fast forward, you have totally grown on me and you have become seriously one of my favorite people.
Thank you.
I think you are one of the funniest people.
Thank you.
You're hilarious. You're very attentive. And the one thing that I love about you that a lot of people have a hard time doing is when I'm talking to you or anyone's talking to you, you are listening to every single word that comes out of my mouth. And sometimes I don't even know you're listening. And now I get a text from you saying, oh, I heard you the other day. Well, here's a lady you can contact. And I'm like, a lot of people don't do that. I'm guilty of it too. I'm like, I walk away. I'm like, I don't even know what she said. But because our minds are always going, but you're always paying attention. And you're such a good listener.
Thank you.
And I love that about you.
I appreciate that. So you might have been the leader of the pack in creating the Girl Gang, right? Tell me where that came from and why you wanted to create this extraordinary group of women who I love and adore. There aren't enough words to describe the joy and love in this group of women.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. It actually started with Pam's first vision board party. I had met a lot of people for the first time at that, like Anne and Cindy, who also thought were crazy. And now I've gotten to love them. So I think it started with that. And I loved that vibe and the whole interaction. The day was amazing. I was like, gosh, we need to do more of this. And I loved everybody that was there, whether you were crazy or not. I loved
Right.
you. That was the inception of the group. When I was young, in my teens and 20s, I always had big groups of girlfriends. But as time got older and I had kids and got married and life started really happening, a lot of those friendships faded. A regret I've always had is not doing a better job of keeping in touch. This was like a second chance. My kids are growing. My son's 22, off in Georgia. My daughter's just turned 15.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And she's going to be off to college soon. It was kind of like a second chance, and it has been amazing. I think this past year and a half or so since then has been like one of the highlights of my life. It's been the best time. I've had so much fun, and just a lot of good has come out of that group.
I would agree with you. I mean, I've been here now a little over 3 years, and I've always believed you get one chance around the sun. I was so excited to move here, even though I knew one person. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other, as Pam loves to say, and it is true, your vibe will attract your tribe. I agree with everything you just said, because especially being a single mom and being on my own since my kids were babies, I do agree with the friendships, and as our kids are getting older and as we were getting older, there's this natural attrition, I guess. You hope that the people in your life will stay throughout and come along with you for the ride. However, not everybody deserves to come along with you for the rest of the ride. At 58, I have never felt more a part of this incredible group of women that we're all different, but we're all the same. We come from different places. We were raised differently. Some of us are Jewish. Some of us are not. Some of us were raised by a single family. Some of us are raised in a different country.
Some of us are married. Some of us have kids. Some of us have never been married.
It's like magic. It really is.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. Laughing, crying, all the things, especially dancing. Probably one of my favorite things to do.
It serves a different purpose, I think, because not only is it, obviously we have a great time together, but it's also very therapeutic. We're all there to support each other in good times and bad times. Sometimes it's just a few of us hanging out. Sometimes it's 15 of us hanging out. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're drinking, and sometimes we're now doing pickleball. So there's so many different things going on in that group that make it so dynamic and amazing.
When anybody suggests, hey, let's go do this, who wants to come? There's no disparagement if you can't make it, if you don't want to make it, if you're going to be late, if you have to leave early. It's just this incredible pull to say, yeah, I want to be together. I'm going to be together this day as long as I can possibly be together. And it's fine.
Yeah.
The reason why I really wanted to talk with you is you and I have been single moms for a long time. I've talked about a lot on this podcast, how long I've been on my own. When I left, Rachel was 11 months old and Noah was 3. I was brought up in this primarily Jewish, homogeneous environment on the North Shore of Chicago. Yes, people were married, then they got divorced. However, my situation seemed much different because it's like I just birthed Rachel and now I'm a single woman working full-time with 2 babies. That was so different in our community. And I felt it. I could really feel the, don't come too close to me. Please don't step in here. Can you step across that carpet line? I just don't want to catch what you might have. And there must be something, not defective, but you're different. So I don't really know how to communicate, even though your kids are cute and they seem like they might be fun. And so I'm very private. I kept everything to myself. And I would go to my therapist and talk about whatever challenges I was having. It wasn't like I went to get advice. I had to get up. I had to get my kids ready. I had to drop them off at their sitters. I went to work. I finished work. I went to pick them up. That whole cycle. And I just kept going. Whenever I needed a little centering, I would go to my therapist and talk. I knew I was on the right path. But nobody came out and said, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? What's going on? Do you want to talk? I don't really understand what you're going through, but I'm here to support you however I can. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience from the time you met your ex-husband, you got married, you had your son, and then you had Izzy?
Okay, so I met my husband my first husband when I was 27. He came from a very religious background, born again Christians, like by the book. He was not so much like that, but his entire family was. And we started dating, we fell in love. I ended up getting pregnant. So I'm not going to say we were forced to get married, but we were very influenced by his family to do the right thing. So we got married. My family was not so much on board with that, but eventually that's what happened. And as soon as we got married, it wasn't long before things started to fall apart. He started to become much stronger in his faith. If I didn't want to have sex, your duty as a Christian wife is to have sex with me, regardless of if you're sick, if you're not. So those things were happening. He didn't like me talking on the phone with my friends unless he was in the room. He wanted me to get a second job and he wanted to be the stay-at-home dad. At that point, I said, I'm done.
I just want to say something. That seems so contradictory.
Correct.
From the jump. I mean, wow. It's you want this, but then you want this. And they don't seem to come, it's not a 1 + 1 = 2. So how was that? What did you do with that conversation?
I ended up resenting him and losing a lot of respect for him, and I couldn't be in that relationship anymore. So I think after 4 or 5 months of us being married, I left.
And how old was your son?
Maybe 1.
Wow.
So
Were you scared?
not really. I've always been extremely independent. My family has always been very supportive. His family was very supportive of me at that point. Not of the decision, but that was also my family. So I had all these people to support me. And he was a phenomenal dad. He just wasn't a good husband to me.
When I left Jay, and I left because he was in his addiction, my mother-in-law was extraordinary to me. Unbelievable. I just remember calling her on numerous occasions. I would start crying like something happened or the kids were sick. And I'm at Starbucks. I'm leaving right now to meet you in the driveway. Okay.
I still have an amazing relationship with her. In fact, when I went to Georgia last October, she's who I stayed with. And they even invited me and Izzy to my ex-husband's nephew's wedding because my son is the best man. But yeah, still very close. She calls me. She prays over me. Very good woman, very good family, very good people.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What was your life like once you decided to leave? Where did you go? Were you working full-time at the time? And were you living here or were you living somewhere else?
So I was living here and I was working full-time. I started working when I was 13 years old and haven't stopped. So
we have that in common. Yeah.
Working has always been, and sometimes 2 and 3 jobs at a time. Not really because I had enough money, but I loved to work. I've done a ton of jobs, started young. So that's been ingrained in me. I was working full time. I was living here. I've been here since I was 5 years old.
And where did you come from?
I was
were you
born in
and raised?
Louisiana. I moved here when I was 5, but my family's from Venezuela.
Okay.
So at one point, my ex-husband, we co-parented great, but I had primary custody of my son. And at one point, he wanted to move to Georgia with his entire family, which is a very huge family. And they were all moving to Georgia. So he called me and he said, would you consider moving to Georgia? Because he could not take my son without me going. And so at first I was like, you're crazy. I was like, my family's here. My job is here. My friends are here. I grew up here. I'm not moving to Georgia for my ex-husband. Well, 3 weeks later, I had some kind of revelation and I was like, you know what? I need a change. So I called them up and I said, fine, I'll move to Georgia. I had never been there before. Maybe 2 months later, I was packing up my stuff, moved to Georgia. lived with my ex-husband and my son in a 2-bedroom apartment for the first 6 months. Luckily, I was able to transfer from the job here to a location in Georgia. I was there for 6 years, hated every moment of it. Georgia was not for me. Super nice people, and it's beautiful. But number one, I missed my family, I missed my friends, and I needed the beach. I needed to be by the beach and sunshine.
Was that what your life was like in Louisiana? Is that where you got that love of that environment?
I don't think so. I think it's from being here since I was 5. I don't remember much about Louisiana, but I met my second ex-husband there. I had Izzy with him. And long story short, he had a knee injury at work. They put him on pills. He became a full-blown addict. Then it turned to alcohol. Then it turned to both. Then he became physically abusive. And 1 week later, after the first time he was physically abusive, I took Izzy and I left. I moved back to Florida, left him, haven't seen him since.
Izzy was at the time?
She was 10 months.
When you left. It's really interesting how similar we are in our decision making and how strong we are to have decided to leave with such young children. Yeah. I mean, babies.
Yeah.
And not look back. I'm not a big looking in the rear view mirror kind of girl with any regrets. I keep moving forward and I use the past as a reference point, or if I'm being nostalgic, or like my dad's been gone for a long time and thinking about that, the past in that regard, but not in anything else. Just keep walking one step at a time. Where was your son at the time?
He was also in Georgia.
How old was he when you decided to leave with Izzy?
I would say about 7 or 8. So that was the hardest decision for me, leaving him. It's almost like I had to choose. And
that must have been,
it was heart-wrenching.
Really difficult.
So difficult.
Did you know intuitively that your son was there, that it wasn't even an option to bring him with you and Izzy back to Florida?
I knew for a couple of reasons. It was hard enough thinking about raising one on my own at that point, let alone 2. And with my son, what made the decision easy was he had probably 7, 8, 9 cousins that had moved to Georgia that were all the same age. And he had already started his football and basketball and all these sports. And he was in the school that he loved. And he had that entire family. And like I said, there's probably 20 of them. So my son had a lot of support and he had a really good father. So I knew he was going to be in really good hands. My daughter was not going to have the same kind of life there. And she was 10 months old. I had to make a decision. And that's the decision I chose to make.
How did that impact you? And then do you know how that impacted your son?
Yes. It has impacted him greatly. We have a great relationship, and I see him at least twice a year, probably more when he was younger. But emotionally, yes. I think the divorce left scars because all of his cousins all have mom and dad. So every time, and there's always family functions, he's the one that either doesn't have either parent there because his dad now lives in North Carolina, or the dad and the stepmom, when everybody else has mom and dad. So he was kind of like the odd man, like the black sheep kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's always bothered him. I've almost buried that part because it's so painful to think about. And I wish it could have been different. And there was a lot of things I would have done differently. But all I can do is be the best mom that I can to him now. Not that I was a bad mom. I wasn't around because I was here. So.
Have you forgiven yourself?
I think so. And I did that very recently.
That's amazing. Did something happen that triggered that?
My trip to Georgia in October, because that was the first time I had ever been back to Georgia since I left.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why was because it was like going back to such a horrible time in my life. And so part of that, of course, my fear of flying, but mainly I think it was going to bring back too many bad memories for me, and I was blocking that out. I think it healed a little bit of
Yep.
my relationship with my son, going there and seeing him in his element and his girlfriend and what he's doing. And so I think that was the start of it.
I really don't believe in coincidences. And I always believe that you're meant to meet certain people in your life and you're meant to not have those people from your past continue on with you in the future. What you just described and going back to Georgia and suppressing the emotions that went along with you leaving all those years ago just came into my brain. Something reactivated in my brain recently with my children. And it all started with Rachel was just on spring break. She came from Gainesville to the house with 3 of her friends. They slept over because they were going on a cruise the next day. It was adorable. They were there giggling, just cracked me up. I mean, these 4 22-year-old girls, sweet as can be. Rachel was showing these videos of when she was younger. And apparently, when she was in her room, she would have her phone and she would be singing and dancing and summarizing her day with who was dating, who liked who, and who was broken up. And I think she was in middle school. She was dancing and then she slipped and fell and then she was, I mean, hilarious. And I was like, how did I not know that this was going on? I've always worked full time and I never would allow, or probably purposefully, allow that feeling of missing out on something with my kid to really experience her personality beginning at such a young age. I mean, she's hilarious and I love listening to her giggle and just who she is. But I became really sad and empty for a really short period of time recently. I asked my son, did you ever hear Rachel doing this in her room? Did you ever any idea? Were you ever with her? And he's, no, I had no clue. And I don't know, I didn't start crying. It was just like this short period of time where, with what you just said about wishing things were different, which contradicts me saying I don't look back to reflect. But it was just a short moment. Maybe it's because Rachel's graduating college in May. And maybe it's because Noah's 24 and living on his own, that this deep sadness is somewhere still in my heart because of those moments that I'd missed.
Do you think there's anything in retrospect that you could have done differently?
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's how it was. You describing the environment with your son, I know that my children felt that way and still do when they were at their friends or when we were as a family going for high holiday dinners or Thanksgiving or whatever. It was the 3 of us. It was usually an even number of everybody else. Mother, father, maybe 3 kids, maybe 5 kids or whatever. But we were always like, what's different at this dinner table?
Yeah.
So you go back to Georgia, and how did you feel during that trip?
Man, during the trip, I felt
Were you
amazing.
nervous? I know you don't like flying, but did you have any of that anxiety or fear? Why?
I just wanted it to be perfect and meaningful for both of us. I didn't want to leave anything unsaid and I didn't want to leave anything undone. And I wanted to make sure we packed a lot of stuff in that weekend and I wanted him to feel loved, which I think he did. My son and I have always been close, but this took it to another level and we're getting back to how close we were when he was younger. I think that's also one of the reasons why my daughter and I have an amazing relationship. We are extremely close and I might be even over involved in her life. I think
but I do have to say that when I listened to the episode of Sweet and Spicy, Carolina Rush and Andrea Trout have this amazing podcast that we'll put in the show notes. When I listened to one of your most recent episodes talking about Izzy, I'm like, my God, Rachel would kill me. He would have to go live off the grid somewhere.
Well, I didn't actually tell her yet that we had that episode, but I think she would understand. And she's had no problem talking to Janine and Andrea about it and Sarah. And so she's kind of like an open book like I am. But I think that is one of the reasons why we're so close. I try not to miss a single game. a single practice. I am very involved with her friends and her personal life, and I have to know where she is. I think it's because I don't want to have the same regrets. You know what I mean?
How is Izzy's relationship with your son? She was obviously too young to really start one when you were in Georgia. Has that been challenging for you, your kids?
Yeah, not so much. I never really been able to talk to Matthew about it, but when she was younger, he couldn't stand her. She was the young, annoying little sister.
Yeah.
So there was that aspect to it. But I also think there was probably a little bit of she's getting the best of my mom that I didn't get. So I think there's probably some of that. But there seems to be a lot of resentment on his side. And for her, who grew up without a father and has dealt with a lot of rejection in her life, that has been extremely painful for her. She's always wanted a brother. She loves him to death, but she feels he doesn't like her. I think as he's getting older, it's getting better because he's maturing and he's become more accepting of her.
I swear we have so many parallels, Carolina. We really do. I left Jay because he was in his addiction, drugs, alcohol, and gambling. Rachel was 11 months, Noah was 3. We moved into a new house, just the 3 of us. Rachel's never known what it's like to live in a house with 2 parents. And Noah really didn't either. As they got older and Jay was getting healthier, Noah then started having some challenges. Sometimes it's hard to articulate your own, but it's like the squeaky wheel gets the wheel. And so Noah was experiencing some challenges, and then his ultimate suffering from depression, anxiety, trauma, which ultimately led to him being an addict. Rachel would go along doing everything, hysterical. She was like the bohemian bag lady who dressed adorable. She had 2 different socks, 2 different shoes, funky glasses.
God.
She would paint red hearts on both of her cheeks. She would wear like a polka dotted shirt with a striped sweater with a funky hat. And I mean, all you wanted to do was, I was laughing all the time. However, as they both started aging and kind of splitting apart because of their own issues, now they were older and they started to understand about addiction with their father. Somebody gets the more oxygen from you as a parent. It's kind of inevitable, but it's hard to really balance it and make it somewhat equal. I don't believe that every child deserves the same percentage of attention from the parent. That's kind of impossible because even though you're born from the same parents, you could have 2 completely different children. Rachel was on this path, doing well in school, always, a phenomenal athlete, staying the course, doing her stuff. Noah was the same thing, but there was this thing that he couldn't let go. He needed to be at the bottom. And we had a really hard time, me and Rachel. Our relationship had suffered incredibly. My mom and I had a challenging relationship for many years. But the struggle with my daughter was so debilitating at times. It was because she felt that she was in a corner and nobody was paying attention to her.
Really?
And because Noah was all about Noah, because Noah was struggling and Noah needed help. And then Noah. And I knew that this was happening. I could feel it. I could see it. The behavior said everything I needed to know. And then the anger and resentment, you talked about resentment. I mean, like, she was in so much pain and I was there and I took it all. Thank God she is where she is today. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that Noah and Rachel are these like amazingly aware, forgiving, sensitive, honest human beings, because there were so many times that I was sad and depressed and struggling. It was when I was driving by myself, when I went to bed, and had a hard day with the kids or something had happened with me and Rachel. We had an argument and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to and how to turn the ship.
Yeah.
And it all comes from pain. We are all suffering with so much pain, whether you have a two-parent house or not. It doesn't really matter. Some people don't, and God bless them. I didn't feel like I had this kind of pain in my life when I was growing up. My pain with my family came later. This pain from myself, my ex-husband, my children, like the four of us, my family, it was hard to ever really be able to explain that pain to myself and keep moving forward. I've always felt I've had this permanent sadness and little hole somewhere in my heart or brain because of all of that. Sometimes it'll come out like a trigger. It's overwhelming.
So you have not forgiven yourself?
No, I learned from Jay about forgiveness. I never really thought about it. And I've learned a lot from Jay. He was very into the 12-step program. He would say it saved his life. And I learned over 25 years ago about letting go and moving on and forgiveness. And that forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with you releasing and freeing yourself from the burden of the anger and bitterness and resentment and really harmful thoughts that you have about another human being. I mean, that sounds great in theory, that I've forgiven somebody and I've forgiven myself, but these spontaneous thoughts that come into your brain, those I found have gotten harder to sometimes move through. It seemed easier to move through them while I was really in the shit.
Have a choice?
Yeah, I was working full time. I had these two babies.
And you were too busy relishing it.
Exactly. I knew people say, oh, the oxygen mask theory. And I've always said that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. I started understanding that wasn't being selfish. That was really important. So, but it is hard you could say you forgive yourself for certain situations, like, what happened with you and your son. And when you moved to Georgia, I moved back to Florida with Izzy. And that feels good to say it. But sometimes it really is a challenge to really feel that forgiveness.
I totally get that. I totally get it.
And feel it like really lighten your load a little bit. Because sometimes those memories of what was.
Right. But I think the way that we need to look at this when we start to have those thoughts is we have done the best that we can as single moms. Like my parents would always say, we didn't come with a book of instructions, and we didn't. And if it wasn't that, it would have been something else. We do the best we can with the knowledge that we have and the cards that were dealt. When we were talking earlier about feeling not accepted as a single mom, to me, now I've gotten to a point where being a single mom has become my power.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing what all those families with two parents, a mom and dad, I'm doing what you're doing, and I'm doing it all by myself. Yep. And that is power. Yep. And we need to maybe flip the thought process instead of shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
I did this. So I may not have been perfect, but we're all doing okay now. And we should be proud of ourselves for what we have been through, for overcoming it, and for raising our kids, whether it was perfect or not. We've gotten them to where they are now. And that's a huge accomplishment.
I agree. I would say that for some reason, the newer single mothers, at least from where I'm from, there are all these accolades being thrown at them. You're doing a great job. And I wasn't looking for any accolades because I didn't have time, but I had nothing, like no positive words, nothing coming from anybody. I mean, and I was stunned. Like when I look back on it and maybe my privacy and the way I dealt with things, people thought I was fine. But like even not to ask or pretend to ask, how you doing? Do you need any help? Do you want me to come over and watch the kids so you can go get your nails done or whatever? Nothing.
Yeah.
And now I have friends who are going through the divorce process or friends that have gotten divorced, and it's the need to be there. I just can't. It's too painful.
Yeah.
Like, where were you 20 years ago? And it's not worth having that conversation, so I just keep moving. And you're right. We do deserve to feel proud of ourselves for being in our situation. I think that comes in little bits, little moments of joy from the reaction of your kids or the I love yous from your kid or the hugs from your kids, the closeness that you and Izzy have. I mean, that's beautiful. That's one of the most important things, I think.
Yeah.
When you have children that you know love you and you love them
Yeah, 100%.
and matter.
I don't really care what the rest of the world thinks. For me, it's for what my kids think. If they're okay, then everything's okay.
I agree. I'm okay, you're okay.
That's right.
Are we okay? Great. Let's go get some ice cream. All right. We're going to turn the subject because you are, I feel like, the queen of this. And we're going to talk about dating. So,
Oh, gosh.
but you're so fun to chat about this. I mean, you'd crack me up. So, I never really thought about dating once I was a single mom. I was working full time. I had these young kids. I believe a pie is 100%. You have to sleep, you have to eat, you have to work, you have to do all these things.
Right.
And I never had that desire to date while I was in all this crap. As years went on, I had friends that would start, their marriages were splitting up. They had young kids, and they were like with somebody in a minute. Some of them didn't have to work. They had help with their children, and they were out in the city and coming home at 5 a.m. and they're like, Jen, come on, you should come with us. I have to get up at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And this is probably because I don't have a ton of experience in the dating world, but they made it look so easy. And you know what's funny? I've been looking back at old pictures of myself and of my family and whatever, and I wasn't an ugly duckling. What was it? What was it? What was I? Did I have a pimple? Was my hair out of place? Was I wearing a really ugly top that night? What was it? And have always been pretty self-conscious when I'm out in a social setting. And I will say that I've always felt really shy when I'm out in a social setting. And I would say that started to change a little bit when I first moved here because I was by myself. I would go out to dinner, sit at the bar. I'd go to the office a lot. It was really easy and chill. I talked to other people. I'm like, oh, okay, I could do this. I've done it my whole life. You have made it seem not easy, obviously. I'm not really sure what it is.
I don't know, Jen. It's weird because since I was young, I've always had a boyfriend. So my high school sweetheart I was with for 5-6 years almost.
Wow.
And then it was 3-year relationship, 4-year relationship, 3 years, 2 years, 4 years. And I always kind of had, they either overlapped or there was plan B waiting.
Oh my God.
So I never went through the dating situation until the last 5 years.
Wow.
I did do online dating. The longest relationship I had ended in 2019 or 18, and we were together for 3 or 4 years. He was like the second person I met online, and we just had that kind of luck back then.
I just want everyone to know I just did like a major eyeball roll.
As you get older, my standards are higher. So it's not as easy. Back in the day, if you were hot, I was going out with you. I don't care anything else. I'll figure it out later. And now it's, well, there is a list of requirements, but you have to put yourself out there. And this is going to sound crazy, and I have done this before when things didn't work out, even after a first date. Have you ever thought about asking the guy?
Really long time since I've been on a first date.
So
yes, I have, because thanks to some of the topics that you and Andrea have discussed, as well as other podcasts since I've been here, yes, I have heard that. And yes, I would when hopefully the opportunity presents itself.
Because you're online dating now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Hinge, thanks to you. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I committed to a 6 month. I paid for 6 months. I said I would never pay again, and then I don't know what happened.
Eggs in one basket.
I know I'm still on Tinder, and it really isn't just a booty call
No
from what I've
pun
heard.
intended with the mind your nest.
Yes, exactly. Well, that is important to mind your nest. Mind your nest can mean so many different things. And minding yourself, like your personal self, is one of the biggest gifts in life, to mind your personal nest.
I think you would honestly benefit from a matchmaker.
Really? You know somebody?
I do.
Okay, good.
So we had a guest, you met her. Our guest that Andrea and I had that night was a professional matchmaker. We talked about her coming back on our podcast to do one for me. I don't necessarily think I need one, nor do I want one at the moment. I think that would be great for you.
Have your slot or something like that?
Yes.
I appreciate
So I
it.
think that we should have her on with you on the same show and have you as her guinea pig.
Love that.
I think that would be fun.
fantastic. Sometimes in hindsight, everybody deserves a giggle or 2 or 12 at my expense. And I've been pretty vocal about this over the years. Sometimes I have to say that my first kiss could have potentially set the carpet in terms of what my potential experience was going to be in the dating world. I played tennis since I was 9. I would play every Monday and Wednesdays in a group in Deerfield. And there was a guy who I had a little crush on. I had a crush on all of our pros because they were gorgeous, one of the pros, which I knew I was never going to wind up kissing or marrying him, but it was nice to dream. But there was a guy in my class who I had a little bit of a crush on. I was full grown at 5'3" at a very young age. We would do these laps down and back and touch the white line and back. Somehow it came up that we were going to meet at the park on a Saturday next to Northbrook Court. And he asked me if I had a friend. I reached out to my girlfriend, and he was going to bring his friend Sam. So everybody had a name that started with S, and then there was me, Jennifer. So my girlfriend and I got on the bus at 10:30 on a Saturday. We get to Northbrook Court, I don't know, like 11:15. That was where we hung out, at the mall. But instead of going to the mall, we met them at the park. It was so weird. And I can't even believe that I did this and that this happened. We go to the park. Sam and Scott are there. I'm like, hey, guys, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, Sam and my girlfriend are off. They're gone. I'm like, what are we supposed to do? So Scott's like, if we're going to kiss, you're going to have to kiss me first. And I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, I am 14. Oh my gosh. And he was the same age. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, of course this happens to me. And I didn't know what to do. Well, I did know what to do, but I was like, really? Long story short, I kissed him. And after I kissed him, he screams, ouch. I said, what happened? He's, you bit me. I was devastated. And I'm thinking, I wonder if I can go interrupt my girlfriend from her smooching with Sam and say, I think if we run really fast, we can get the bus back to our house. It was horrifying.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
obviously very traumatizing if you're still thinking about it to this day.
Exactly. And the second and final thing before we wrap up the show, because hopefully everybody's now smiling and giggling because this is such a hilarious topic, is my parents split up when I was 19. And I didn't have, still at that age, a lot of experience. My mom started dating somebody and I was living in the house with her. Well, I think I had a boyfriend at the time. She says something to me which horrified me at the time, but I feel like I have to share because I'm sure I'm not the only one whose mother ever said this to their daughter. We're having dinner or something like that. And I'm just curious. Do you want to be the last American virgin, or are you saving yourself for something? Or are you a lesbian? I mean, it's okay if you're a lesbian, but I just want to know. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Horrified. We didn't really have those talks, my mother and I, when I went for my first bra. It was like, you are not allowed in the room with me with the woman who's going to fit me for my first bra. I was very private. So I felt a little bit of redemption would be losing my virginity in the house that I grew up in the basement. And I was 24 and a half. And the half is very important because it was right after July 5th, and my birthday's January 5th. So I thought, okay, I made it before 25.
Oh my God.
I mean, that may or may not have something to do with my true shyness as it relates to wanting and being really open to meeting somebody because of those two experiences in my life.
I mean, it might.
Yeah.
You never know.
For those wondering, I've definitely honed my kissing skills, as I've been told.
Did you take kissing lessons or something?
No, I had a good girlfriend. She was from New York. She was my roommate from college, and she didn't put up with any of this Midwestern, like, soft crap. She was like, I don't want to hear any of this. In closing, what are your thoughts on that? And then we're going to have to wrap it up.
Well, I think as far as dating, the way that I look at dating now is that being with a man is not something I need. Finding a man would be a bonus, but my life is complete the way it is now.
And I agree with that.
And I think that has helped me cope with how difficult dating is at this stage in my life, because it's not something I need. But even if I meet somebody and hang out with them for a few weeks, wine and dine, go out, have a good time, whatever, great. At least I had fun and on to the next.
I had so many guy friends growing up my whole life. Loved, hung out with them all the time. And I don't know. So I don't think that that was just part of how I grew up. Maybe it was just my perception for all these years. It takes a little bit of time to unlearn certain things and look at things a different way. Now that I'm 58 and at a place in my life like you described, I've definitely talked about how great it would be to meet somebody to canoodle with. It would be wonderful to find a companion. I do believe, I'm a very hopeful person, that at the right place at the right time it will happen. I just have to continue to be open to the possibilities.
And we're going to get the matchmaker together with you.
Fantastic. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I loved it.
I loved it
And
too.
I love you.
And I love you too. All right, everybody. Have a great day. And as always, don't forget to mind your nest.